Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hey everyone, my name is Tiffany Obeng, and I am the author and owner of Sugar Cookie Books Publishing and Print. I am based in Houston, Texas, and my story goes a little something like a few others would probably agree. Back in 2020, during a pandemic, we're all shifted from being in the workplace to now working from home. I am an attorney by day. My specialty or focus is employment discrimination or diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're now at home, we're now shuffling, we're now trying to figure out what is the point of life? What is my part in all of this? Because we have the uproar happening across the nation, across the world. And I finally, with the prompting of my husband and my mother, decided to pursue becoming a published author. So I took a manuscript that I had written probably 2 years prior. I renamed it so it could be named after my son because I thought it would be cool to have that legacy with him. And I set on the path of becoming a independently published author. So that was in August 2020. I was fine with that. It was a quiet release. I didn't want anyone to know that I had pursued this besides friends and family. I did not think of the impact that I could go on to have. I just knew I was crossing an item off my list and that it had been fun. Cut a few months later, I began writing and I published my second book. And I was pregnant at the time with my second child, and sorry, the doors are opening. So I was pregnant at the time with my second child when my second book released, and I did a little bit more promo on that book, but still not much. I was just like, you know what, this is just fun. But then after I released my second book, and I'm putting that second book onto my son's bookshelf. It's named after my son. It features my son as the main character. So therefore, it is a Black boy character who graces the cover of the book and the pages of the book. And the stories at the time were being told, or he was sharing the pages with his mom. And of course, she's a Black mother. So as I'm putting his 2 books on his bookshelf, because he loves to read, I'm realizing that my 2 books are really the only 2 books he had that featured diverse characters. I'm also coming across statistics now that are showing the lack of diversity in children's picture book literature. I am learning that we only account for, in 2020, 2021, 2022, and still to this day, about 13% of children's literature, whereas animals account for 49+% of children's literature. And then you have our counterparts. So now that I'm equipped with this knowledge of the lack of diversity in children's picture book media, now that I have my Black son and now my Black daughter, and now that I'm realizing that what I'm doing can be important and is important, I decided to do something about the representation in children's media. And I began publishing more children's books featuring Black characters. So from April 2021, I went from 2 published books to 10 published books in 8 months. And today, as of January 24th, 2024, I now have 20 children picture books, all featuring Black child characters and their families. My flagship product is the Andrew Learns About Career series. So that was the first 2 books I mentioned. Andrew learns about actors and Andrew learns about teachers. And now he has explored engineering, science or scientists, and lawyers, of course. His mom is a lawyer, so he's explored lawyers. And now he's going on to explore chefs. And what's important about those books is that if your child can see it, they can be it. We need to diversify the talent pipeline. And one way I'm choosing to do that is by starting as early as possible, educating our children and making them aware of their future possibilities. The first step is awareness. The second step is education. And that way we can keep them interested in school and we can keep them focused. And as they matriculate through their educational path and career, then hopefully they'll be qualified to then pursue the career of their choosing and therefore diversify the workforce. A lot of us are starting with high schoolers, college, or even middle school now, but I think that the emphasis on elementary needs to be there as well. And so I'm hoping that through my children picture books, I can engage children and equip them as early as possible to pursue their future and to just feel like they belong in a world where they are.
I love, love, love what you're doing. Tiffany, when I listen to you speak, it reminds me of bringing up my kids in foreign countries. So as you know, I'm from Zimbabwe originally, lived in New Zealand for 22 years, now in Australia. It's so important for our children to see a reflection of themselves in the literature that they read. So I've actually written my first children's book for my grandson. He's now 2.5.
Yeah.
And it's very, very true that this is necessary. So, how do you balance your role as an employment discrimination attorney with your passion for writing children's books that promote diversity?
Yes. And what is so interesting is, like I said, when I first started, I wasn't thinking about my skills that I was already practicing or using every day as being the motivating factor, one of the motivating factors as to what I was doing. It took probably about 2 years of me producing and talking to other people. And they're like, oh my gosh, what you do by day goes into what you're doing by night, if you will. And I'm like, oh yeah, it does. And then with the production of so many books in such a short point of time, someone once told me, like, man, you're going to single-handedly, I mean, I think this is a really big compliment and it was kind of scary, but she's like, if you keep at this pace, you will single-handedly change the landscape of children picture literature. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really scary. And so I did an article about being a social impact author. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. So I think it goes hand in hand because in my role, not necessarily as an employment discrimination attorney, because that is I'm an employment defender. So I defend the employers. But in my role prior to practicing the employment discrimination, I was an attorney in the equal opportunity, diversity and equal opportunity. And so in that role, I was able to be more proactive. I was able to educate managers, supervisors, and leaders about the importance of diversity, how to comply with our statutes that promote diversity and things of that sort. So having that proactive role, affirmative action plans, making sure that recruitment is considering merits and not, rejecting people based on race. So just having a hand in trying to diversify our workforce and then trying to make sure everyone's feeling included goes into the media. And then the eventual goal and passion that I have of using my children's literature to impact the talent pipeline and workforces.
I love that. So, as an employment discrimination attorney, what are some of the common challenges that you encounter and how do you address them?
The common challenges. And I'm laughing because it's just so annoying sometimes. But something that is very common is hair. The way we choose to present at work is an issue to a lot and still is to this day. And just trying to educate people on what our hair looks like, as long as it's done, does not
Yeah.
matter. Like if I choose to wear my hair in locks, if I choose to wear my hair in braids, if I choose to wear my hair in cornrows, an afro puff, whatever you want to call your hairstyle, it
Yeah.
shouldn't matter. Like what matters is if I'm doing the job. And so that is something that we constantly get complaints about. And as you may be familiar, the Crown Act has been enacted, is sweeping across different states, including in Houston, Texas, or in Texas, it's been enacted. So that's great. But people are still not understanding what it means and how to comply with it. So that's been a big struggle.
Wow, I can imagine. And it's good that it is being enforced. A lot of people don't even know what the Crown Act is. So if you would
Mhm.
just like to go into that a little bit for us.
So the Crown Act is a law that is being passed across the nation that says that Black people essentially are protected, their hairstyles, the way they choose to wear their hair, especially if they choose to wear it the way it grows out their head, is protected from employment discrimination or discrimination in education. And so I'm
Yes.
so glad you asked that, because in my opinion, there is a blind spot in the Crown Act, not intentionally, but a lot of emphasis, especially since it was Black women who are behind this effort. So a lot of people sometimes think the Crown Act only protects Black women.
Mhm.
Also, a lot of people who are familiar with the Crown Act didn't realize that it reaches down into the education system to protect students as well. And so, with my books such as Black Boy Hair Joy, I'm hoping that it can educate teachers, parents, employers on accepting kids for who they are, and that our Black boys as well and their hairstyles need to be protected as well, because our Black boys are being targeted or disciplined at a higher rate, because or judged because of the way they want to wear their hair. So
Mhm. That was always a challenge for me and my two sons when they were growing up. The school wanted them to cut their hair.
mhm,
I had their hair in braids. I looked after it. It was kept nice and short and neat. If we
mhm.
released it, it would be a big afro. And I had to go in guns blazing, fighting for the right for them to keep their hair natural and the way it's traditionally kept with the braiding. Yeah, so it is a challenge for most people of African descent, regardless of where you are, to be accepted for who you are.
Yep.
So now, how do you use your children's books as a tool for advocating for diversity in the workplace?
So again, just with the Andrew Learns About Career series, being able to put those positive, diverse representation in front of children as early as
Yes.
possible. So not only will a lot of the books feature, Black leaders or the professionals that are in a Black they're Black women and men, for example. So in lawyers, you see Black women, you see Black men, you see women in general, and just people of different descents. And so in doing that, you're able to show people or children who are in underrepresented groups that they too belong to be in that space. And studies have shown that when kids are introduced to a career and that career sparks their interest, then they're going to be more likely to stay in school, that they're going to be more likely to do well in the subjects that are needed to pursue that career. And so being able to give them that information is, again, will hopefully keep them in school, will hopefully decrease the school to prison pipeline and increase the school to talent pipeline, and will hopefully, for the people who are not in underrepresented groups, be a window for them so it can build empathy so they're not scared. Because a lot of this, in my opinion, and as we know, a lot of this comes from just unfamiliarity. It's the unconscious bias. So we talk about that a lot. And when you don't, or when you're not familiar with something, then you either fight or flight. And so, if we can give these images, it will normalize us. It will have others see that our Black boys, our Black girls, our Black men, and our Black women are just like you. We are all the same. And so in doing that, and that's the same thing with the Black boy hair joy. If you see a kid running down a hallway, skipping down a hallway with locks on their head, then it no longer becomes a threat when you actually see a kid in real life with locks on their head. It's like, oh my gosh, I've seen you before. And so that sense of belonging and the sense of familiarity is what I'm hoping I can achieve with these books.
That's awesome. So how does your legal expertise inform the themes and the messages in your children's books?
So I don't know if my legal expertise informs the messages, but my legal background has helped in crafting the messages in the sense that I'm able to gather a lot of information and present it in a way that is concise and understandable to the reader that I'm targeting. And so I believe that skill that I attained just throughout school, but especially as a lawyer, has been very helpful in writing children's picture books, especially when you're writing on topics such as careers, especially if they're a complex or technical career like an engineer. Like, how are you going to break down the career of an engineer to a 5-year-old? Like, how do you do it? And so being able to do that research is another thing. Legal research was very important and is still very important. And so being able to research these different topics that I want to speak about or write on, and then being able to present that information to my intended audience in a way that they can understand and want to engage with, I believe my legal background has helped with that.
That's fantastic. So what strategies do you recommend for parents and educators to encourage diversity and inclusion through literature?
So, one, just picking, I don't know how much I can say, but reading with your children is very important. So just first start there. Reading with your children is very important, and promoting reading. So my children, we've read to them since they were infants. Like, we were reading picture books that they could not understand, could not hold, could not turn the pages. But we just did it because, one, I was an avid reader as I grew up, and two, my husband actually likes that about me, that I love to read. So us instilling that in our children was a no-brainer. So we just would read, and now it's a habit. Like, still, my son is 8 and my daughter is now 2, but my daughter will sit down and pick up a book and just start reading. Same thing with my son. And then they know that by bedtime, we're definitely reading. So it's just something that is expected. But anyway, so in the diversity part, a lot of people consider books that feature Black characters as Black books. This book is not for me, it's for Black people. And we need to unthink that, because when I see a book that has Matilda on it, we're not saying that's a white book or that's a girl book. We're saying, oh, look, it's Matilda. Let's read Matilda. Yes. So I want the same grace given and consideration given to books that bear Black characters on them. And I'll, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it should just be a book. It should just be a book about someone, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And so, again, just unlearning. And within our community as well, we have to unlearn, because a lot of my books, out of the 20 titles, probably about 15 or 17 of them feature a boy character. And that's because most of them are inspired by my son. And so people would be like, where are your girl books? So again, it's the privilege of, why is my Black boy expected to read a book that has anybody in it, doesn't have him in it or on it, but your child can't read a book that has a Black boy on it or a Black person on it? So just teaching, and a book is a book. It really is.
Yeah. It should be as simple as that.
Yeah.
So are there any upcoming projects or goals that you're working towards in your advocacy for diversity through children's literature?
Yes. So one thing I've done, so I've created this journal / interactive workbook / guide where, so a lot of times the context is, when I would go out to events with my books, I would get women, especially Black women, who would be like, "Oh man, I wanted to write a children's book. Oh, I wish I could write a children's book. How did you write a children's book?" And so I decided to package that information in a journal for them. It is very affordable, but it takes you from conception. Well, first it starts off with your why, because I think your why of why you're doing it is going to guide you forever and ever, especially when no one's picking up your book. Well, why did you write the book? Did you write the book for everyone to pick up? Like, you just need to know, like, why are you doing this? But it starts with your why, but it also goes to the concept, character, and takes you all the way through to the illustration process. So I can not only empower other Black women to go ahead and write their children's book, but that will also amplify Black women voices in children picture books. We're still needed in children picture or literature. And so to be able to help in that way and make it affordable, you don't have to pay me $30,000 to teach you how to read a children's book. Like, this literally will get you on your path to writing a children's book. So that's one thing that I've done. And then currently I'm working on the 6th career book in the Andrew Learns About Career book series. And so, as I mentioned, we'll be exploring chefs this time around, which I found interesting as I'm doing my research, in that Black women have forever been in the kitchen, whether we want it to be or not.
Yes.
However, most chefs who have the recognition and accolades are not Black women. It's really hard to find Black women.
Yeah.
And there was also a time where Black women couldn't put their names on cookbooks. So they would either put a male alias. And I'm like, but we ran the kitchen. How can we not dominate a space that we have forever been in? So anyway,
Yeah.
but I'm writing about chefs because one, I don't feel that kids are now starting to see chefs as a possible profession. That's why we're seeing the kids cooking shows. But I
Yeah.
also want to highlight exactly, what does a chef do? Why are chefs important? Like, that's what I want to do when I write these career books. What are they doing and why are they important? And in that way, it can inspire the child to consider it. And so that's my 2 projects. I'm also trying to work with other organizations who also believe in diversity in education and diversity in literature, or just positively impacting the talent pipeline. So just trying to connect with people and organizations.
That's awesome. Absolutely fantastic. It's very, very inspiring to listen to what you've done. So my last question for you is, based on your experience, what advice would you give to these aspiring authors who want to create impactful, diverse children's literature? What have been some of the lessons that you've learned along this journey?
So one of the biggest mantras that I and other children book authors, or authors in general, have gone by is, do it scared. Like, this is scary. It is very scary to
Yes.
to be putting out to do anything in the arts, or to just to do anything that's new. So do it scared. To don't discredit yourself. Some people think, oh, because I didn't major in English, therefore I can't write a book. But I didn't major in English. Yes, I am an attorney, but I didn't major in English or anything, but I still was able to write a book. You have help to write your book. You have editors. So even if you feel like, I don't know how to develop this story, there are different people who are here to help you develop your story. You do not have to go at it alone. And then another last piece of advice for now is something I personally love and try to live by, which is Marianne Williamson quote, which is, our fear is not that we're inadequate. Our fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And so get going.
Don't be afraid of your own light. I love that. I absolutely love it. And it's so true. We hold back and forget that you are just a storyteller. You don't have to be a perfectionist. You will get the support and the help that you need. So now, if I take you back a few steps to the younger woman who set out on this journey to branch out from her career as an attorney and to be an author, if you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of wisdom, 3 pieces of advice, about life. Based on what life has taught you so far, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
That is an amazing question. I think one of the nuggets would be, I'm gonna say something kind of cheesy for the first one. Bet on yourself. Like bet on yourself, because again, if you don't start, you don't know where you're gonna end up. You don't know how well this will go. Two, I would say to myself that my voice is needed, my perspective is needed, and that what you're embarking on is beyond you. It goes far beyond what you thought you were doing. You thought it was a bucket list, but girl, no, this is not. This is way more than you, and you can handle it. And the last one would be, you're gonna build a community of people and that you never thought you would know. You're going to meet people you never thought you would know. You're going to talk to people that you never thought you would talk to. And you're going to inspire many other people to use their voices or pursue the things that they never thought that they could pursue. We are now in a time where we don't have to just do one thing. Like, I don't have to just be an attorney. I can be an attorney, and I can be an author / publisher / business owner. I can be a mom, and I could be a wife. I could be all of the things. And so now and then with the work from home situation or remote work opportunities that are now out there, it makes it even more possible for us. So I think, yeah.
The sky's the limit. You are your own limitation, really. There
Yes.
is nothing holding you back. So now, talking about the future, let me teleport you through a little time experiment and take you to the future. You are now 90 years old, sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children and grandchildren. If I could take you to go and meet this wise woman who's created this amazing legacy and led you to that point, what would you say to her when you finally meet her?
I probably would say, can you believe it? When you were probably in college, you had it placed on your spirit or heart that you were going to take the main stage and people would listen to you. And you didn't know what that meant. You had no idea what that meant, and it was kind of scary. But now you know what it means, and you did a phenomenal job.
I love it. I love asking people that question because a lot of times women don't realize just how powerful we are, and that everything that you think you need is already inside you. It's already inside you. You don't have to look outside of yourself to find it. So thank you for reminding us of that and for trusting that inner voice that has guided you up until this point. You are leaving a legacy. You are changing the landscape of literature for people of African descent and their children and their children's children. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
So I've got your website at the bottom of the screen. If anybody wants to go online and get hold of these amazing books, please reach out to Tiffany. And thank you all for tuning in today. The Diversity Connector and the Her Story Circle are 2 platforms that bring you voices from amazing people from all over the world. Tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Tiffany, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay connected.